I am Anna Seawold, and this is Authentic Parenting. Hello, and welcome to the final episode of the year. I am joined with my dear friend, Christy Lorisella, from episode 300, and today we're going to reflect on the past year. Lessons we learned, hardships we went through, challenges we overcame, habits we started, things we enjoyed, how we had fun, and so much more. As well as we will share the top 10 episodes of the year, the most downloaded and listened to episodes of 2021, and we will reveal our word of the year for 2022. But before we get to the show, I want to play one listener voicemail that was meant to be for the 300 episode. The sender, Peta from Australia, thought that I didn't choose her message. That is not the case whatsoever. Somehow I missed it. In the barrage of emails that I get daily, I missed this wonderful voicemail, and I feel so bad that it didn't make to the 300 episode. All I want to say, Peta, is I'm sorry and thank you so very much. It's very special and it means a lot. Please enjoy.
Hi, my name is Peta Morton and I'm from Queensland in Australia. I'm so honoured to be able to be a part of this 300th episode of my favourite podcast. I've been listening to the podcast now since about March of 2019 and I haven't missed an episode, and I've even gone back and listened to some of the older episodes too. I stumbled across the podcast when I was going through a massive stage of self-development. Basically, I was looking for ways to be a better mum. See, I'm a mum of two daughters. One is only 6 and the other is 18. So as you can imagine, they're worlds apart. I was looking for ways to connect with my teenager and at the same time, ways to calm my anxious toddler. Basically, I felt like I was losing control as a mum, but finding this podcast was absolutely my saving grace. Anna and her array of wonderful guests have taught me that in order to be a great mum, I have to give back to me first. This podcast has taught me so much about myself, and I've in turn become a more patient, calm, and conscious mother, wife, daughter, and sister. Anna is such a wonderful host. She asks such thought-provoking questions, and she often gets put in the hot seat with her guests, and I love that she's just not afraid to get completely vulnerable. She offers amazing advice, and some of the book recommendations have become my favourite books too. Now, Anna often speaks about her accent being a barrier, but I absolutely love her accent. I could listen to her speak all day. Her podcasts leave me feeling more like I've had a conversation with a close friend. I listen every single week. I can't wait for a new episode to drop. Listening to the podcast while I walk my dog, it's just a part of my morning routine now. Some of my favourite episodes are episode 149, Anger with Russell Coates, episode 175 with Byron Katie, and episode 178, Raising Emotionally Healthy Kids with Maureen Healy. I can honestly say that this podcast has changed me for the better. I don't know where I'd be without it, Anna. Thank you for all your wisdom. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do. Keep it up.
Christy, welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you, Anna. I feel like I was just here yesterday. It's really nice to be back so soon.
Yeah, maybe in the new year we should do more episodes together.
I'm up for that. Absolutely. Sounds good.
As the kids say, we vibe together.
Definitely.
So let's take some time to reflect on this somewhat terrible year, 2021. How has the year been for you? What have been the major changes in your life? What events happened? How would you describe this year? If you were to choose 3 to 5 words, how would you describe the year 2021?
The first thing that comes to my mind was we made it. Like it just like this sense of like when it started, there was a lot of hope, and it started off with the vaccines and just the inauguration of a new president, and it was just like this new beginning. And then as the year went on, it just was like more of the same garbage. And it's like, oh, we're still in this. We're still in this, and so I think that but we're here. We made it.
Yes, I feel the same way. So I kept a journal. When I was reflecting on my year, I sort of remember some of the good things and mostly the negative, dragging, boring, lonely, those days, right? It's every day is the same. We're still in this pandemic. When is this going to end? Oh, whatever. We got used to this, blah, blah, right? And Adam Grant has written a very good article. Have you read that article about languishing?
No, I have not.
So I will share that article with you and I will put it in the show notes. It's such a great piece. He talks about how this whole pandemic situation is, we're not thriving necessarily, but we're not also so depressed anymore. Things are just okay and boring and the same. And the psychological term for this, not thriving and not depressed, sort of middle state, is languishing. Ever since I read that article, when people ask me, hey, Anna, how are you doing? How are you dealing with the pandemic? How is life? I'm like, I'm languishing. So I started using that term. He has written another great article about this new variant and how we're so used to this uncertainty and the fear. We're like, whatever. So we're not even getting so anxious or worried anymore with bad news about this COVID. So I will link those two articles. They're great articles. He's a great thinker. So I just want to say that. When I was reflecting on my year, I write a journal. I went back to my journal and I opened and it says, January, the last day of January. And I'm like, what did I write in January? So here is what I wrote in January. And it turns out I did have hopes. And like you said, new energy, this new beginning I wanted to embrace. And I list a lot of new things that I have done. I laughed a lot, watched comedy, got new plans, talked to my dad almost daily, ordered table tennis, exercise twice daily. So I enlist these things. But then I remember when February came, it was the worst time of my life. I would say one of the worst times of my life. February 22nd, I remember it was the worst day of my maybe entire life, even worse than the earthquake. And I wrote that article, How Remote Learning is Hurting Kids. Remember, you read that article? And so I was in a very dark place. So January, we had hope. And I think because the winter is long in here in the Northeast and life wasn't good, our kids still were doing remote learning. My daughter was not doing well. We were struggling as a family. It was just so depressing. And my own mental health was declining. For the first time in my life, I was lying down in bed one day and I'm like, wow, I really understand why people want to commit suicide, because I couldn't see any bright light out there. Like everything seemed so miserable. And because I was serving parents, I was getting so many calls and requests. And when I was working with parents, I was seeing even worse things in their families. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And so I'm so happy that that part is over and we sort of saw some light. And now we're like, I'm glad we made it.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds really intense. I had such a very different experience, I think, from you in that my daily job was out of the home and in a hospital setting every day. Even though I was facing COVID every day, I also because I was up and about and commuting to work every day, 9 to 5-ish, I kind of forgot about all the people who were home still. And I really had to remind myself, most of my friends and family were still working from home, and kids were my son and all my friends' children were at school from home. And I'm grateful for that normalcy that I had leaving the house every day. I think that probably helped my mental health. And but I certainly can understand how that isolation, that continual repetition of just being home, being stuck home, it really takes a toll on everyone.
The sameness, right?
Yeah.
You see the same people, you eat the same food, you do the same things. Right? It was winter, we couldn't go out or anything, and it was cold. And once the spring came, we could be more outdoor. The dining outdoor began and things opened up. People got vaccinated. Life became a little different, a lot better, I think. And there was at some point, I think I realized it was a little lighter. I think in June, I felt a little better about everything. I was also dealing with the grief of my dad, right? He passed away in March. So that added a whole nother thing to my COVID experience. Yeah. And so I think if I look at my life, honestly, we had the 2020 and 2021. For me, 2021 was worse than 2020, for sure. Mm-hmm. And of course, there were good moments too, and things that I've accomplished or good things happened. But it seems like my overall, if I were to paint a picture, it's not going to be sunshine, butterfly, rainbow type of picture about 2021. It's going to be more grayish, very monochrome type of painting. Mm-hmm. And I would choose words like challenging, terrible, difficult, more this kind of adjectives as opposed to amazing, incredible, inspiring, lovely. Even though things happened like that, but I'm more skewed towards the negative somehow.
Yeah. Well, I think also too, because it's in the context of everyone suffering. I mean, this is a global pandemic, and even, celebrating your personal successes, which is really important, but knowing it's in the context of so much suffering all around us, knowing it's in the context of so much suffering, it's kind of, it can make it really hard to celebrate.
Yeah. I agree. That's why I took time to celebrate the 300th episode. Somewhat feeling guilty, but also celebrating whatever I could celebrate. I did celebrate birthdays, little ordinary moments, and things like that. For sure.
I think that, I was just going to say, I think that's what dark times do for us is we can really find comfort in those rituals and those happy times. They really stand out and shine. It's really important to celebrate the way you did.
Yeah. And then we had the cicadas in New Jersey. Like so many interesting things happened. The cicadas they come out of the ground every 17 years. And they were in my area. They were so loud. It was just so bad. You couldn't even go outside anymore. It was just so loud, their noise. I'll post a picture of cicadas. I took so many pictures and videos. It was just for 6 weeks, they were in this area. And then they went on underground again for another 17 years.
Yeah. I came to your area around that time, and it was like you could not take a step without like crunching on a dead cicada. It was really, it was quite a sensory experience.
It was. Then vaccination came. I got vaccinated, I guess, later than everybody else, like in April, May, I believe. So that was like a good milestone, big thing for humanity, for people, right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I know I was working in a hospital, so I was able to get vaccinated in December and January. And so the whole year I have been celebrating that. And, just recently getting my son vaccinated. For me, that is a true miracle. And I really, really, really hope that more folks continue to get vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I have some questions here that I took off the internet. So let's answer some of these questions. I think they are kind of fun. And we are already talking about the year. So the first question is, what is the most important lesson you learned this year? Did you learn any lessons this year?
I think I learned to just keep showing up. I mean, I knew that to be true, but in the really hard times and when you're doubting yourself, it's just important to keep showing up. And I think I learned that in a variety of settings and, in my relationships, in my work, in my parenting, in my friendships, just keep showing up.
Yeah. I think for me, if I were to say I learned a lesson, or maybe relearned the lesson, would be that light and dark exist together. It's not like let's choose light and forget about dark, or pain and happiness can be together. So for me, holding this two in my heart, in my mind, in my life, I think was the biggest lesson I was reminded of, and lived that lesson through and through this year. That yes, I can cry and grieve, but I can also be happy, and all in the same day. And that is okay. That is very human. I think that's the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah, I think that's the Buddhist philosophy of the lotus flower and like the mud and the muck and the roots underneath. Like the beauty of the flower would not be possible without the muck. That duality. It's so important to accept, or try to at least.
Yeah, like you can hate someone and love them at the same time. I was reminded of this all the time this year in my life. The closest people I have in my family, I hated them and I loved them almost on the same day. So it's just interesting. Being human is interesting. As I age, I realize that duality, that the paradoxes of life is what makes life interesting. Like we're yearning for perfection, for harmony in our relationship, or conflict-less marriage, or perfect kid, whatever that is. But I was reminded that, hey, that's all okay. Having struggles and a good conversation with your loved one is what makes life beautiful. That's what it's all about. I think I'm okay with that duality and accepting the many paradoxes of life. So the second question is, what is the best thing that happened?
I would say the best thing that happened is, it's hard. It's for me personally, or for like the world. I think the vaccine is top of the list for me, and I think seeing folks come together really and helping each other this year has really been beautiful.
For me, I don't know what's the best thing that happened. I have a hard time. I have to agree with you. Maybe I want to go with more global things like that. I don't think any like best thing, personal things happened to me per se. Maybe my daughter went to school in person, and COVID outbreak hasn't happened in her school, and she's thriving. And so that's the best thing, I think, for me. It didn't happen to me like personally, but because my child is thriving and she's happy, and it just makes me so much happier and content. Yeah, I think I would choose that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What challenges did you overcome?
I think for me, a big challenge that I overcame was giving myself the permission to ask for help. This year, I discovered a lot of mentors and intentionally sought them out and asked them to be an active part of my life and my professional support. And I think that has probably been really, really key to getting through this year. How about you?
Things I overcame, I have to say, I traveled alone in June, and that was hard. I would say I overcame my fear, my anxiety. When I came to the airport, I wanted to leave with the mask, with a lot of people. I said, I don't think I can do this with my, with my health conditions and worries and the COVID. I think that's the biggest thing that I overcame this year, going through that experience alone and facing fear and reality alone in a big world. And then it wasn't like the pleasant of the experiences. My flight got canceled. I was in the airport for 9 hours alone, doing nothing, worrying, is my plane going to come? Am I ever going to get to my destination? It was just, I went through a lot that day. And after a very slow life of this COVID pandemic life, right? I was just in my home, taking walks, having this very mellow life. Traveling solo and doing that felt very enormous, almost like a culture shock, because a lot of my skills were atrophied at that point after a year and a half, like conversation skills, social skills, travel skills, all of those social skills, I would say. And it felt enormously Herculean to do this, even though like traveling alone, it should not be that hard of a thing. But I felt it was so hard for me just to go through that experience. So I think I'm going to put that on the list.
Yeah.
What new skills did you learn?
Time management, I think, has become more crucial for me. Not that I never knew how to do it. I think it's always been a strength of mine, but I think really getting my systems in place. Google Calendar saves my life, and I have a planner. It's my Bible, and I can't schedule one thing without it. And I think that I finally got my system down. And I hope that this planner comes out every year for the rest of my life, because I'm in love with it. And I just
what's the planner?
It's an agenda. It's a 17-month agenda, and the artist. I'll give a shout out to the artist who is the designer of the whole calendar. Her name is Morgan Harper Nichols. She's a visual artist, a songwriter, and this agenda is just beautiful. It has really inspirational quotes throughout, along with her original artwork. There's like the weekly layout, the monthly layout, comes with a lot of fun stickers and a note section for each month. And it's just,
wow,
just beautiful.
Yeah. That is beautiful.
I highly recommend it. You can probably still get yours. I ordered mine through Barnes and Noble, but maybe you can find a more local independent shop to buy yours. But she's got a lot of artwork in Target, and she's kind of hit her stride with getting her artwork out there. So
very cool. Yeah, I have to check her out, and I will have a link for that agenda in the show notes. I love good stationery agenda and things like that. Very cool. I'm not sure if I learned new skills this year, I have to say. I'm thinking about this.
It's hard when you're in your 40s and talking about learning new skills.
I know. What did I learn this year? I don't know. I'm taking a writing class. Maybe I can say that I learned a lot in the writing class, if that counts. But yeah, I think that's what I'm going to say. I'm taking a writing class with Dr. Judith Brabenor, the author of the Girl in the Red Boots. Mm-hmm. I'm loving the class. It's almost over. And I learned a lot. So I'm going to go with that.
What would you say is like the big takeaway, as a writer in that course? Like what have you learned? Like what's one thing that you're going to take forward with you for your future writing?
Oh, many. So I would say two things. Blow up the small moments in writing, go deep and exaggerate sort of the experience for the reader. don't just say, I smelled perfume. Describe how it smelled so that the person reading can smell that perfume. Give details and sensory experience, that kind of stuff. And another thing that was very good was slow down when it hurts. So when you're writing a personal essay or a story, like I wrote about my dad, I skimmed through some of the sentences that I said, and they said, wait a minute, you just teared up reading that part. Slow down when it hurts and just expand. That's the gold. So I thought that's a good lesson for life too, right? So I think that there are many, but these are two I'm going to highlight today.
And also like very interesting trauma-informed strategies for being in the moment, tapping into your senses, slowing down when you get to a painful feeling and really thinking about what's there for you. That's very interesting, that overlap.
Yeah, true. This question relates to you big time. What did you do for your career growth?
Well, I went from being a hospital palliative care social worker through the pandemic to an independent therapist as a part of a private practice with some of my mentors. And it's been a really amazing shift for me. And also taking on some new work as a mental health coordinator for a refugee resettlement organization. So it's a big change. I have a lot of autonomy, and I miss the work in the hospital to a certain degree. I don't miss the exhaustion, and I don't miss the really time-consuming nature of that work. And I really appreciate the ability to do work that I want to do on a daily basis, the way I want to do it.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you that you took a big leap in your career, and that's big change. So
I also just wanted more time to spend with you, Anna. Really,
we're gonna podcast together. It's great. Christy, as for myself, no big career growth happened for me. I have to be honest. I did what I had to do. Just no big changes. What did you enjoy the most? I have 3 words: music, nature, alone time. Yeah. You?
Very nice. I've just enjoyed, my son turned 9 this year, and I just have enjoyed his company so much. I know it's just a really great age. And
he's a great kid. Your son is an amazing, wonderful human being. Yes.
Yeah, he is. When I think of the answer to that question, I just see his face and think about the conversations we've had this year. And it's just been remarkable watching him grow.
Oh my gosh. I remember his conversations when he was 5. He was always very, very wise. What was your favorite moment? Do you have a favorite? I do have a favorite moment from
What's
the year.
What's your favorite moment?
Oh my gosh. It's embarrassing, but I'm going to say it. Have you seen my Instagram stories about the sunflower field? When I went to the sunflower field, it was the best experience during this whole pandemic. Like, I forgot for a moment that there is COVID, that there is hardship, that there is like life. I was in the field by myself because my daughter and my husband got lost. It was a big field. And I did that video when I'm like twirling in the sunflower field. And for a moment, it felt like I was this kid. And I had a vision like that a long time ago during a yoga session, a restorative yoga session. I saw myself as a 5-year-old kid doing the exact thing, being in a flower field and being so boundlessly, joyfully, authentically happy that you forget that life exists and you become one with nature. So that moment was so memorable for me. And I took that video, put a music clip, and I posted on Instagram. If anybody wants to see it, it's in my highlights. I love it so much. And people have commented. Everybody said this song will forever be in my mind. will remind you of you, Anna. I got so many comments on Instagram. It's just a very beautiful moment. If you want to check it out on Instagram, go to my account, Authentic Parenting Podcast. And in the highlights, it says sunflower field or something. Yeah.
It wasn't in 2021. I think it was in 2020, but we did go to a sunflower field and just really, if anybody ever gets an opportunity to go to a farm like that, it's just so wonderful to be surrounded by that.
It's magical. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect time of the day. It was like afternoon, perfect weather, beautiful. It was just like for a moment, you forgot that there was hardship. So, yeah.
Yeah.
For you?
Oh, I think there's so many moments that I think about. Nothing is quite as magical as yours. I have to say, I definitely have had these moments when I first started seeing clients here in my office and just sitting in this chair across the room from someone, feeling that level of trust that they have for me, and just the privilege of being in this space and doing the work that I do. I just have so many moments of that really resonate for me, and I hope that feeling stays with me in this part of my career moving forward, because it really is a privilege.
That's great. Yeah. It will stay with you. How did you have fun? Next question.
I watched a lot of TV this year.
Like TV or Netflix or
like Netflix and, watching, I am obsessed with true crime documentaries. I cannot get enough. And I let myself indulge for years, especially through grad school. And when I was teaching, I never had time to watch TV. And this year, it's my return, to TV viewing.
Can you say that interesting thing that you read about why women watch this kind of content?
Oh yeah, I meant to look that up. I cannot remember. It was in an article that I was reading about true crime, and it was talking about why are women obsessed with true crime podcasts and murder shows and all that, and someone said it has to do with this desire to want to protect ourselves. So by learning about like these worst case scenarios, somehow we're absorbing the ways in which we can protect ourselves. It's kind of sad. I don't know if I'm consciously thinking about that while I'm watching. I mean, I definitely double check the windows are locked and the doors are locked after I watch one of those shows. So maybe it is helping me be more mindful of my security. But it's I don't know. I feel like it's a real guilty pleasure watching those shows, but it's kind of ironic because they're so dark and twisted.
And they're popular. Hey, I want to give a shout out to one of our community members, one of our listeners, Zara. She is a true crime connoisseur. She loves this genre. So Zara, if you're listening, hi. No, I'm not into that genre, I have to say. It creates fear and anxiety in me, just the opposite effect. I'm not interested in that. How did I have fun? No, I didn't watch a lot of TV. In fact, I didn't watch a lot of shows. But since we're talking about shows, I watched this show that I recommended to you, and I recommended to a couple of people. And I know that we have a lot of therapists in our audience. So if anybody hasn't watched Couples Therapy, I absolutely love that show. I'm obsessed with it. It's a documentary series, but it's with real couples, and I just loved it. I started rewatching it again. That's how boring.
What is it? What streaming service is that on?
I used Amazon Prime. I purchased the series, but okay. I believe you can use other streaming things. We don't have any other things, so I'm not familiar with other things. Just couples therapy with a real therapist from New York City. She's a psychoanalyst. It's just amazing how the couples, they have diverse couples. I love her off. I love everything about show, including the music, and very well done series. So I watched that. I did some, I participated in a lot of birthday parties, gatherings, social gatherings. I enjoyed those. That's how I had fun. And I went to the Van Gogh immersive experience in New York City. That was an interesting experience. So I think these are the ways I had fun, I guess. Next question. What new habits did you start? Can I say mine?
Yeah.
I quit coffee.
Right. You're still going with that?
I'm still going with that. Yeah, I can indulge once in a while, maybe once a week.
I want to take a sip of my Starbucks while we're talking. Hold on.
Oh, okay. You're being mean. I don't even desire coffee. I don't even want coffee. In fact, when I took a sip one day, my husband still drinks coffee. I'm like, oh my gosh, how was I into this disgusting drink? I have an aversion, but sometimes I get double Americano decaf from Small World Coffee. Mm-hmm. So like once a week, if I'm in a mood or something like that. Yeah. So what new habit did you start?
One new habit I started was, instead of drinking 2 cups of coffee a day, I drank 3 cups of coffee a day.
Oh God.
No, I'm just kidding. One thing that I don't do it every single day, but in an effort to get more physical activity, I'm always shooting for my 10,000 steps a day. So getting out of the house really early in the morning, even when it's dark, and taking my dog with me, going for a really long walk, has been a new habit that I've done more regularly, and I love it.
Hold on. Did you get the joke in 2021 or 2020?
2020.
Oh, 2020. Okay.
Yeah. So she's our pandemic puppy, and I feel very safe when I'm out and about with her. She can be quite vicious, despite how cute she is.
Next question. What are you most proud of this year?
How do you answer that question, Anna?
One word, 300 episodes.
Yes, that's what I thought.
That's it, man. Nothing else happened in my life. Yeah, that's the biggest accomplishment, I think, I can think of.
Yeah, I'm most proud of setting myself up as a therapist this year in a practice. And so I'll say private practice.
Cool. Here's a question. How did your relationships, family, friends, work evolve? Friends, I made sure to hang out with friends, my neighborhood people, my friends. I made that a priority, even if it's just one friend or 2 friends. Work-wise, I deleted my public Facebook page, and I'm so happy because I hate Facebook. And family-wise, I don't know, it's the same. No like big changes. I mean, except the losses. I lost my dad and I lost my father-in-law. My husband and I both lost our parents this year. So that brought us together in some ways, but also pushed us apart, because grief sometimes can be isolating. Mm-hmm. My grief is different than his, and everybody wants to deal with their own grief. And it seems like we're not converging in that. So that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
I would say probably, personally, the biggest evolution has been in my marriage. I would say my husband and I have really worked at communicating more directly and honestly with each other, and, making requests of each other, and being really honest with whether we can fulfill those requests, and specifically around household stuff. He's really taken the lead, and I so appreciate it. And I would say that's been the biggest evolution for me.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of relationships, especially if it's a long-term marriage, right? It's work. It's hard communicating your needs, developing communication skills, especially when we go through hard life like this pandemic and other hardships are happening. that feels more strenuous too, maintaining. You sort of, sometimes I feel that should come automatically. Like this shouldn't be work, it should come automatically. But why is this also work? That's how I felt these past 2 years as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the proximity we were together, right? Because of how life was. So you are together, you see more. I think for me, I would characterize we got closer, but we also felt pulled to our sides a little bit. Like we had, as I was talking about the duality of things, I see it in my relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. What was the best decision you took?
I know my best decision, and I know when I made it, it was like I was considering resigning from my job at the hospital, which is very steady income, very reliable schedule, and make the transition to working independently. And I was pretty certain about that. But actually, I can an amazing moment that I had this year. It ties in with this. We went on a whale watching tour off of the coast of the Jersey Shore. And we saw a whale, and it was beautiful. And for about 15 minutes, it kept resurfacing and resurfacing. And I had said prior to the outing, I said, if we see a whale today, I'm quitting my job on Monday.
Oh boy. And you did.
And we saw a whale. Boy, did we see a whale. It was really beautiful, really magical. And it was my sign from the universe. It just kind of, I was there already, but it just tipped me over the edge.
Oh boy, that's funny. I don't know if I took a best decision this year. Maybe I collaborated with Laura Froen, my colleague, and my friend, the co-host on the podcast, on the special episodes. We did a siblings class together, and it was amazing.
I love her.
Yeah, I love her. And the collaboration went so well, unexpectedly well. And so I'm going to say that was a good decision. Next question. How did you fail? Did you fail? I don't think I failed. I don't want to admit that I failed.
Well, I think we were talking about this question before we recorded. I was saying that I was really failing at the beginning of the year with communicating with my partner. And it was really, it was impacting our relationship. I was just really stuck and expecting him to read my mind, and continually getting upset with him for not being able to read my mind. And it was something that I just kept doing the same way over and over again until I couldn't do it that way anymore. And there was luckily a good shift for us. But those failures, I'm never afraid to admit a failure, because it's always, on the other side of it is always like the good stuff at some point. So
I agree. We should do a podcast on this topic, how women expect men to read their mind and how we become resentful and we become angry and frustrated. I have been in that place, not anymore, at least not as much as I used to be in the past. And I know it's not a good place to be, but yeah. And we can discuss the origins. Why is it like that? Why do we want? And men are not so good at that either. Like, we want them to read our mind and meet our needs, but that's not their strength to begin with. If any men are listening who are good at reading minds, please contact us. We can have you on the podcast.
Or if you have a partner who has expected you to read their minds in the past and you've worked through it, how did you work through it?
Even juicier. Yeah. This is a good topic. It comes up a lot in our Facebook group, in our support call every time. So we should do a podcast about this. Okay. Question. What got in the way of your success? I'm going to say myself. I got on the in the way of my own success, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. You?
I have to say, if anything, myself, because I feel very, very, a lot of gratitude this year. There was nothing getting in my way this year. I was really able to reach my goals and ask for what I needed. And it always just seemed to be right on the other side. So.
What would you do differently if you could? I wrote not much. I don't know if I could do anything differently that I either failed to do or neglected to do, or I was unable to do. I don't know. I think I did my best, whatever that best was. And I took action in a lot of situations, and action was the word of the year for me.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes taking no action was its own action, like taking no action. I wouldn't do anything differently. I don't know. You?
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, there's things I wish I had done differently on a very small scale, like choices with healthier choices with food and things like that. Certainly had fun in the raiding the refrigerator this year, but yeah. Other than that,
well, here is a question: what did you do for your physical and mental health? I can go first.
Yeah.
I started weight training with
Nice.
With a personal trainer once a week, and I started seeing a therapist for mental health and physical health. So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
So are you noticing a difference with the strength training?
I am, yeah. Mm-hmm. And she's noticing it too. Like my body is because I haven't trained ever in my life, you get results right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's what she said too. But it's going to plateau probably. But I do feel difference.
And your process for choosing a therapist, what was that like?
Well, the reason I sought out therapy was my anxiety, my panic attacks were getting really bad to the degree that debilitating. And I went for a blood work. I couldn't go through it. Bad things, good things. I would just leave the situation. Right? When I quit coffee, my anxiety disappeared big time. When I did the on-air session with Dr. Dick Schwartz, my situation got a lot better. That was the same time that I quit coffee. And I'm like, wow, that disappeared, that feeling. But then guess what? It would come circumstantially. Like I would end up in a situational. I would be in a situation and it would just, this panic attack would come. I didn't have the generalized anxiety, but I would have like this major panic attack now. I'm like, whoa, what's happening? And so one day I was talking to my neighbor who has a dog and I don't know her. She said, hey, what's up? What's your name? In the pandemic, everybody's very friendly. And I said, my name is Anna. She said, my name is Anna too. And so we started talking. She's an anesthesiologist. And I said, oh boy, like I have to go to colonoscopy, but I'm afraid of the anesthesia part. Like I have medical trauma. I can't go through procedures. And she started talking to me. And then it ended up me crying and telling her my life. And she said, I think you should talk to someone. I came home and I said, holy moly, I should talk to someone, because I went to get a massage. I couldn't go through. My panic attack was getting the best of me. And so I searched in Psychology Today. I was looking for a therapist who is trauma informed, knows EMDR, knows, about anxiety. I was looking at certain things like that. I wanted someone who is aligned with me, right? Not just like cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not going to go to cognitive behavioral therapy. And when I was searching, I saw a lot of people, and a lot of them don't accept new clients. It says on there, but this person accepts clients, and it was I wanted a male, no judgment or anything, but I just wanted a male therapist, and I just contacted them, and they took me in, and he's a great guy. He's maybe in his 60s, I'm going to say, if not 70s, I don't know. Like he's elderly, not elderly. Listen, I'm almost 50. So mature, he's mature. He has a lot of experience. He's very good so far. Yeah.
I'm glad that you found somebody that you trust and
Well, I don't know if I fully trust. Okay. So it takes time to develop that trust.
Okay. Well,
Like,
I'm glad you like him.
I like
I'm
him.
glad you like that old guy.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. I hope he's not listening to this podcast.
No, I'm always curious. I'm always curious now that I'm a therapist. I'm curious about how people find their therapists. And I too was, when I was struggling this year with my own mental health and needed support, I actually found a new therapist for myself. And it's been such a wonderful change for me. And going through that experience of meeting a new therapist and being on the other side of it now, it was really an eye-opening experience for me to feel that vulnerability and the courage that I had to muster to meet this person for the first time, and then just share these really deeply personal, painful things with them.
It's hard.
It takes soul. I just want to give a shout out to anybody out there who's listening, who goes to therapy or who's thinking about it. It takes so much courage, and just kudos to you for putting yourself out there.
I know.
It's really, really hard, especially when you're feeling down.
I feel so like that towards my clients now. I'm like, holy cow. Like, not that I take it lightly. I don't, but it's hard, and they do it. And here it was hard for me. I was sitting there. I'm like, why did I even do this? Like, why am I even here? I chose it, but it's good. It's good. We're getting there, and he's good. He spoke with me on the phone in the beginning before working with me, like a free consult. It was supposed to be 15 minutes. It ended up being 45. So I knew that, he's the right guy. Yeah. So that's that. That's how I chose. Who and what had the biggest impact on your life this year? I don't know. I'm going to say my dad. His presence, his absence had the biggest impact on me, and my father-in-law too. You?
I have to say probably one of my mentors who's a longtime therapist who brought me into the practice and really encouraged me to pursue this work. His faith in me has been really enormous, and has really helped me this year.
Yeah. What did you let go? Did you let go anything this year?
I let go of the fear. I let go of the fear of failure and of messing up. I really, really let go of that this year.
I let go of things too, even friendship, even grudges, things of that nature too, resentments. And I would say that.
It's really easy to shed things when your world is so small, when your world shrinks to so small with the COVID lockdown and everything. I think it is a little bit easier to release relationships and patterns that no longer serve us.
Yes, because you are stuck in the essential world, right? Things of essential. Mm-hmm. And what doesn't serve you stands out. Like in the past, we were more inundated with a lot of stuff, right? We were busier. Mm-hmm. And so essential things, you had to be purposeful to look for them in your life. Mm-hmm. Now it's stripped down. It's so we're stuck with our families, with our work, with the bare minimum essential life things. And so whatever is not working, whatever doesn't serve you, it stands out. So I feel the same way. Yeah, I think I have an easier time letting go now in my life than before. Yeah. What did you leave unfinished? I did leave something unfinished, a project that I started, a cool project. I hired a graphic designer from my community, Laura Mattison. She's a listener, an amazing artist. Shout out to her. I will have a link to her Instagram. And she came to the conference, to the Authentic Parenting Conference. You probably met her. She was helping with the art stations.
I did buy a piece of art that day. Was she one of the artists? Who
No,
had her
there was another artist.
Oh,
yes.
she was helping. She was just
Yes.
helping with the art.
She was just helping me.
Okay.
Yeah, she was just helping me. She was amazing. I hired her to do the design for the cards, the art. I did a challenge this year. Oh, I forgot about that. 30 Days of Happiness. I did a challenge. I created it. Like I had a burst of energy in one moment. I got to do this. I did it. And then it was so good. I said, I'm going to turn this into a deck of cards. And she designed all the cards, everything. But like I stopped. I stalled on it. You know, sometimes you get excited about something. At least that's how I am. Like I get excited before Christmas and the actual Christmas comes, I'm like, you know, for me, getting there is more exciting than the actual event. So I feel like I just stalled on it, but I'm going to pick it up. It's a very good project. How about you?
I look forward to that. I think getting my office in like exactly how I want it to be has been a work in progress. And I thought I would have it done by the end of the year. It's clearly not going to be done. And so that'll be my January project.
What was the best compliment you received?
I think when I was in the hospital working with a gentleman who was near the end of life, and his dear friend was at the bedside. And after we met and spoke very candidly about his sickness and his remaining time, his friend left the room with me and he said, "You are really, really good at this work." It meant a lot to me because it was a really hard conversation to have.
Wow.
How about you?
Wow, not as meaningful as yours. No, meaningful, but not as I think I'm going to go with my podcast listeners who gave me compliments for the 300 episode. Remember? Yeah, we listened to them together. I'm going to give them a shout out. They're just amazing people. They don't know how much they make me happy. You know, I still hear their voices in my head. Hi, my name is Bethany. I'm calling, Canada. Or I'm Heather, everybody's voice is in my head. And I remember their words. They mean a lot. And they're very genuine, these people. You could hear in their voice, right? So I love my community.
Yeah, you have those compliments on record for everyone to hear. That's wonderful.
And this year, I did listen when I was down several times. I did play those voicemails. It makes me happy in the moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What energized you? What drained you?
Facebook drained me this year.
Seriously. I mean, Facebook is not good, people.
And TikTok drained me this year. TikTok is another way I had fun this year. And it's a little too much fun. When the scrolling ends, it can be a real sad state of affairs.
Oh my gosh. I'm not on TikTok. I don't know what I'm missing out. What drained me? Family arguments with my family, my daughter and my husband. What energized me? Good conversations on the podcast, people like you, friends like you, meeting you in person. Remember, I met you a couple of times.
Yeah.
That energizes me. Nature energizes me. Music. Oh my gosh, I posted do you have Spotify?
No.
You don't have Spotify. So people who have Spotify, they got their what's called Wrapped 2021. So Spotify, just like any other, Facebook or social media platform, tracks the analytics and they know what you listen to, what you like, etc. And they send you this video towards the end of the year. And I got mine. And it's so funny. They tell you who you listened to, how many minutes you listened to, what was your favorite genre, artist. And I was like, and they also gave you your mood. My mood was nostalgic and confident. This is the type of music I listen to. I will post that. It's pretty fun. But music energized me a lot this year. I turned to music more than to podcasts or to, like you said, TV or shows. I didn't watch any shows or things like that. So music. How kind were you to yourself?
Skip that one.
Skip that one. But we're going to keep this in the podcast.
No, we don't have to skip it. I go ahead. You have an answer to that? I want to hear your answer. I have an answer, but
I do have an answer to everything. Listen, I'm a podcaster. I was kind to myself. I think I'm going to say I was selfishly caring for myself this year because I knew I needed it. Mm-hmm. That's why I started the therapy, personal training, took care of my health, cut dairy, gluten, lectins, coffee from my diet, walked every day, did a lot of those self-care basic things for myself. I think I was kind to myself, and I made sure I reach out if I need help. And I made sure I took time and slowed down and took refuge and rested and took a nap if I needed to. I was very kind to myself this year because I knew I was in a hard place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I kind of overlap with yours. I think the finding a good therapist for myself and walking more and, taking a shower and using really nice shampoo, just a little thing like that. It's 5 minutes, but it's
I know. I put perfume. I put perfume on when I have Zoom calls. Okay, so you using a good shampoo is you win.
Yeah.
So those were the questions. What do you think about them? Were they good questions? We took a long time answering them.
Yeah, I think they're good questions. I think it's definitely a list that the readers can take and run with. Definitely good journal prompts. You can expand almost every single one of these questions, and it's definitely made me remember things that I had forgotten. So
yeah. Definitely. And there are some questions for 2022. I'll post those in the show notes in case somebody wants to take the prompts and journal. But now is the time to announce the top 10 episodes of 2021. Are you ready? I'm excited to take a look at this list. I glanced at it because I don't want to be too informed. So the top 10 episodes, Christy, are the most downloaded and the most listened to episodes of 2021. Do you want to read the number 10?
Sure.
Okay.
Number 10, the complicated mother-daughter relationship from September.
I'm not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised. I knew this is going to be in the top 10. I didn't know it was going to be the 10th place, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorites of the year. I'm surprised it's not higher on the list.
It will get higher, I think, later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 9 on the list is
Simplicity Parenting from February.
Yeah, with Kim John Payne. I'm not surprised. He's also very popular. Number 8.
How to Master Your Difficult Feelings
with Joan Rosenberg.
Joan Rosenberg.
Yeah, people were talking about this episode. I'm not that surprised, but I wouldn't think it would be on the 8th place. Mm-hmm. Number 7, How to Raise Kids Who Aren't A-Holes.
Great title. I love that title.
I think people are drawn to that title. Yeah, it's the title that gets a lot of the book too. I think the book was okay. I'm not like, wow, it was the best book. It was a well-written, well-researched book, but it was a good conversation.
So that's number 7.
That's number 7.
Number 6.
When Kids Don't Listen with Anna Seewald.
We know her.
I don't even know what I talked about in this episode. I'm going to go check. But that's number 6, man.
And number 5?
The Hard Truth About Parenting the Conscious Way. I'm not surprised this episode got a lot of feedback. People are talking about this. It hit home for many people. I love the guest. I had an amazing time. Great conversation. Highly recommend. Yeah.
And number 4?
The Power of Self-Regulation with my friend, Sarah McLaughlin, and myself. We talked about self-regulation. Yeah, again, I'm not surprised. This is a good episode, hands down. We shared a lot of tools in this episode.
Number 3.
When Your Needs Are Not Met with Yvette Erasmus. Love this episode. Love this guest. Love her writing. I'm going to invite her back. She's so good. Not surprised about this episode whatsoever. It just, people talked about this. See, it was released in January. Mm-hmm. It's been a year. People still talk about it.
And I didn't listen to this episode. Is that this is pertaining to when you as a parent, when your own needs aren't being met?
Yeah, as a person, as an individual. Yeah, this is not about parenting.
Oh, okay.
It's about marriage, relationships, the difference between needs and feelings, how to communicate your needs effectively. You should actually listen to this.
I should have listened to it in January when it came out, and maybe I would have had a different kind of year.
Yes, there you go.
All right, number 2.
Number 2 is how to talk to kids. I am surprised that this is a relatively new episode, but it topped the charts.
And that's a very general title too.
It is a general title, but it's a really good conversation. And the authors, Dr. Stigsrud has been a returning guest, and Ned Johnson, he's amazing. Their books, highly recommend, Self-Driven Child and How to Talk to Kids. It's an amazing conversation, great people. Yes. I wasn't expecting it to jump to the second place so fast, but it did.
And drum roll. Number one top podcast for authentic parenting with Anna Seawald is
Parenting with Presence with Dr. Dan Siegel.
Oh, no surprise there.
No surprise. Dr. Dan Siegel, you are our favorite. Yes. Yeah, those were the top 10 of the year.
Well, that's a good starter pack for anyone who's new to the podcast, right? It's a good starter pack.
True. I will put it together as a PDF download. You are right. So, Christy, let's talk about what podcasts we listen to, and can we recommend some podcasts to our listeners? I am dying to hear yours.
Okay. So my podcast, definitely, I have to be honest. I am not a huge podcast listener in my previous life, but I am now, with my new schedule, I'm able to create time for podcasts. However, I still have favorite podcasts, with Authentic Parenting being the podcast that I actually listen to the most frequently and will make time for. I listen to it while I'm washing dishes. So that's number 1. Number 2 is a podcast that is very popular. It's called On Being. It is I listen to it through NPR, and it's Krista Tippett. And she has the most beautiful voice. She chooses the most exquisite guests. And if you are looking for a place to start, I just listened to the Catherine May Wintering episode, which aired originally in January, but she aired it again this December. It's so beautiful. And if you're struggling with these winter months, it's a really wonderful episode to start with. And surprisingly, I didn't know this, but Catherine May, who's an author, also wrote a book. She edited an anthology about motherhood, and the title of the anthology is The Best, Most Awful Job. So I definitely want to get my copy of that book. Another podcast that I love is Yarns at Yin Hu. This is a really special podcast created by a really dear friend of mine, Sarah, and you have to start listening to it from the beginning, because it is her entire evolution as a fiber artist from the very beginning to now, where she's amazing. She's creating sewing patterns, and she experiments with all these different types of fiber arts now. And it's just a real nice escape
Isn't she also making her own clothing?
She makes her own clothing. Yeah. She does a lot of research on the history of knitting. She incorporates recipes and poetry into her. It's just it's a vibe. It's a vibe. And she's just lovely. And finally, I just started a brand new podcast that I love. And I had to give a shout out to my murderistas. I'm part of a murder club. We listen to podcasts and watch true crime documentaries. This new podcast is called Bad Women, and it's the stories of the victims of Jack the Ripper. So this historian and author, she has chosen to really take a deep dive into the identities of the victims. She said, so often we focus on the perpetrator, but she really has done an amazing job exploring these women, who they were, and how who they were played a part in this bigger story of Jack the Ripper. So those are my recommendations, a very wide range of recommendations.
Very interesting. Yeah, diverse list. And another thing just popped into my head when you said true crime and women, watching this kind of content. Is it because our life is hard, so we choose this kind of content because it's worse? And we escape, but also sort of you compare and you say, oh, I have it good. You get like a sense of that sense. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Maybe is it like a real privilege to enjoy true crime? I don't know. Like if you're, I don't know. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm going to share my list. I have 5 instead of 4. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts before. I stopped listening to podcasts, but my very favorites that I didn't stop listening are: number 1, Being Well with Dr. Rick Hansen. It's a mental health podcast. He does it with his son, Forrest Hansen. And I love it. I listen to every episode. It's light, it's meaningful, it's psychology, mental health. It's great. And some of our guests overlap. So I love that podcast. Very well put together. Number 2, Feel Better, Live More with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He's been a guest on my podcast. I love his accent. He's British. He has great guests. Some of our guests overlap again. It's a similar show to my show, right? It's a personal development, health, mental health, well-being show. But he's a medical doctor, and I love it. I love his books. Great podcast. Number 3, The Huberman Lab with Andrew Huberman. He's a Stanford professor, and it's a science podcast. It could be a little heavy for an ordinary listener, but he dissects science into digestible pieces for ordinary listeners. He talks about, topics range from testosterone to sleep to human behavior, to dopamine, to everything you want to know about human biology, human mind. And it's amazing. I love the Huberman Lab. And he has a great Instagram too, where he does lives and teachings. Huge fan of Andrew Huberman. I was a fan of his when he wasn't so big, even then. But then he all of a sudden became very big. Number 4, I'm going to go with Tara Brach, her podcast. It's when I'm needing that kind of stuff, more Buddhist, inspirational, mindfulness, great talk. I love her sense of humor, her stories, her anecdotes. It's just so calming, reassuring, and you learn and you connect. I just love her podcast. And number 5 is the Tim Ferriss show. Do you know Tim Ferriss? Mm-hmm. So I listen to his podcast. I've been a long-time listener. Yeah, he has interesting guests like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and some of the guests who appeared on my podcast, like Dr. Dick Schwartz, have been on his. But of course, he has more business, entrepreneur, that type of stuff too, high performance. I'm interested in that kind of stuff. So these are the top 5s that I listen to regularly, but I can recommend a few more since I'm the podcast person. I think let's recommend a few more. The Science Lab with the Greater Good Science Center podcast is a good one. 10% Happier. They have good. I'm not a big fan of the Dan Harris. But you have to love the host to like the podcast, right? I mean, we listen not because of the content, but because of the host. Here is what I do. I listen to the podcast. I listen a lot of podcasts, but I stay for the host. But I check out a lot of podcasts because of the guests. So this is one of those podcasts, 10% Happier. Another one is The One You Feed. It's also a similar show to mine, a little more towards mindfulness, meditation. Esther Perel's show, Where Should We Begin? They dropped the ball a little bit. The beginning was good. Now they're doing a different version of it. The format is different. I also love Dear Therapists. Have you checked out this podcast?
I have not, no.
Guy Winch and Lori Gottlieb. It's a good show. A real person sends them a letter and they investigate. They bring the person on. They sort of do coaching therapy and there is a follow-up. It's a good one. I mean, as you can tell, I love mental health therapy related podcasts. And another one I'm going to mention is Work Life with Adam Grant. It's a very well put together podcast. Of course, there are a ton more, but maybe I can list them in the show notes as opposed to mentioning. So moving forward, do you choose a word for the year?
The word that I chose for this year, do I choose it or what did I choose?
Yeah. I mean, do you usually do this as a practice? Have you chosen a word for the next year?
I don't usually choose a word for the year. However, this is just like a little secret. I was like wondering whether I should share it or not, but I read an article about this and I started doing it like 3 or 4 years ago. It says that when you make a password for an account, to make it something like kind of like a mantra, since you have to put it in daily, make it something that you want to have to repeat over and over again. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is genius. So ever since I learned that, I use that. So whatever like my password is.
Then don't tell your password.
Yeah. No, so I can't tell my new password, but in the past, and it's not always, it's never just the word. It's always a combination of letters and numbers or whatever. But in the past, I've used integrity, I've used courage, I've used happiness, I've incorporated power, so I just, these words and it really, it really gives me a little burst, and however long, certain passwords expire or whatever. But anyway, so I haven't used this in a password yet. And so I won't, but my word for 2022 is imagine. That's my word for the year.
Oh, wow. I love that. Why did you choose imagine? You want to expand a little bit?
Yeah, I think, well, one of my favorite quotes is walk confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you imagined. And I really feel like we kind of have to like toss that future out in front of us in order to live into it. And so that's what imagine means to me, is just continuing to imagine where I want to be.
I love that. I love that. I also choose a word for the past several years. I've been choosing a word. This year, I'm a little not sure, but I'm leaning towards anchor, like anchoring down and focusing on the things that I need to get done that are important. Like I want to write a book proposal. I want to finish the art project. These big ticket items that I really want to do. It's sort of in accordance with your theme, live the best life that you want to live, imagine. But I want to anchor down because it seems like I was very out there and not anchored down a lot to focus on those things. But I want to make an effort for that this year. Anchor also in relationships, being someone's anchor. So I think that's a good symbol, good metaphor, good word for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, because an anchor keeps a boat from straying, right? And so I'm picturing it being like, it's interesting because we've been so anchored in
I
the
know,
past
right?
2 years. So it's an interesting contradiction to like what you were saying before about feeling so trapped. It's very interesting, but
It is.
that's the
You're
yin
doing
and yang of it.
you're doing your therapeutic technique. Now I'm doubting myself. I'm like, maybe I should change that. No, but it has a meaning for me. Anchor meaning, for doing the work. Yeah.
Sticking to it.
Sticking to it. And it's that's that. But this was fun. What I would love to say is people who listen to the podcast, they can support the show. We have a page on patreon.com and we have 13 active patrons who give monthly. They contribute to the podcast. And I have asked them, do you want something in return? When somebody becomes a patron, I usually send them a gift, a handwritten note, a thank you card, a tote bag, authentic parenting tote bag, a mug or pen or book, whatever I have on hand at that time. And I have 13 active patrons who support the show, and I'm forever grateful. But I would love to get more supporters. People don't know about it. I don't mention it. You were trying to talk about this during the 300 episode, but I think end of the year is a good time when we reflect on things. Maybe my podcast has been someone's favorite podcast. It changed their life. It gave them meaning. It was just a time they took to listen to. It was their self-care time, alone time. However they benefited, I want them to know that if you go to patreon.com/authentic parenting or patreon.com and just click, type my name or authentic parenting, you'll come to the page and you will see that there are different levels of support, anywhere from $2 to $5 a month to $10 a month. You can become a supporter, with and all people get the same benefits. I don't discriminate. We have a free support call that happens bi-monthly now, and moving forward, I post about it in the Facebook community or also on Patreon. I can make posts that could be visible or non-visible, but this is available. And, I want people to know and to join me on Patreon. I think it's a good way of saying thank you, Anna, for the hard work of podcasting, doing this work and bringing this content to us. Yeah. It's easy. You just go to patreon.com/authentic parenting and you can become a fan, super fan, rock star. They all have names, all the levels, and it's very quick. You just become a patron. And I asked the people who support the podcast, I said, do you want anything besides the podcast, like transcripts of the show, webinars I can do for you? I can provide extra content. And they said unanimously, we don't need anything else. We just want to give you from the heart, because I can provide more content, but people are not needing it. So I'm not going to put out new content, but they have access to me, these people. They can call me, they can talk to me. We do have the support group. I just send them Christmas cards and gifts to all the patrons. And so it's a wonderful way of showing your care, your love and support, especially during this holiday season. If you want to do something meaningful, I think this is the time. And we also have an option of donating one time, like through PayPal. It's always in the show notes, the link, or on my website, authenticparenting.com/podcast. There is always a button that says Give from the Heart. And so I appreciate all the contributions because it takes time, money, and effort to put this podcast together, to continue bringing all the guests and buying the books and reading the books, or sometimes I get the books, but it's just, a nice way of staying connected and supporting something that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for reminding us how we can contribute. I think folks, when they hear this, it just to go check out the page and just see if it feels right. And let's help Anna just basically
to
run
reach
the
the
show.
month to
Just
reach the monthly goal of $500.
The monthly goal of $500. That's just really just bare minimum, just to what you put in to keep the podcast going.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to take that off your plate and show our appreciation. So
it would be nice. Yeah. So I encourage people to do that. And if there is questions, comments, they can always contact me. My contact info is available. I want to thank you, Christy, for joining me today for this long episode. And I want to say I love you. You're my dear friend. I can't wait to do more episodes together in 2022. And happy New Year, happy holidays, and may the next year be a brand new good year for all of us. May all our dreams come true. May the worry and the uncertainty disappear from our life and the fear, and may we enjoy each other more. And peace is my favorite word. Yeah. I want peace on earth. I want peace in families. I want peace within. Peace is what I crave, and I want to spread peace in the world.
Well, we could leave it at that. You're so welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to reach your audience and to chat with you. It's always a pleasure.
Yay. Dear listener, Happy New Year.
Happy 2022. Make it a good one.
Boom, 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 boom. That's the fireworks sounds.